Man, we are back. Always like always, Rodney doing something crazy in the middle. That's just what he does. Um, this time we are actually doing the 2A San Pedro. We get to go
Hmm.
hit the largest region that we're actually covering with 8 different teams. And obviously, this is always something interesting for us because obviously it's 2A football. So we look at stats. Sometimes those stats aren't put up, which makes things kind of difficult for us to get some of the information. So, guys, please post up your stats. Help those that are in media try to get some light on some of these kids. So you may hear us kind of like, there wasn't nothing there. So there's nothing we
Hmm.
can do there. But we're going to go ahead and kind of jump into this. We're going to go ahead and see how they finished up last year. We're going to have my man Daniel jump in on this like he always does.
All right, so we're gonna start things off with Benson. Last season went 4-6, 2-4 in the region. Then jump over to Bisbee, who's 5-5, went 4-2 in the region. Catalina picking up some wins last year, something new for them. Went 3-7, 0-6 in the region. Palo Verde, who went 2-8, 1-5 in the region. And we're adding back Santa Rita. As you can see, last year didn't have a season. So we'll see what they have to bring this year. Tanque Verde went 8-2 last year, 5-1 in the region. Tombstone also went 8-2, 4-2 in the region. And then last but not least, your 2A San Pedro champions, which was Willcox, went 6-4 and 5-1 in the region. And the three teams that made the playoffs for the 2A San Pedro was Tanque Verde, Tombstone, and Willcox.
And like always, what we do here is we compare where they ended last season. So the ranking number, we bring it into what we kind of look at what's going to happen. Will they do better or worse, or will they be the same? According to that, for example, Benson finishes off the year for max preps at 171. Bisbee finishes off the year at 156. Catalina finishes off at 208. Palo
Hmm.
Verde finishes off at 201. Santa Rita, as mentioned, they didn't play last year. Tanque Verde finishes off the season at 119. Tombstone at 155 and Willcox at 148. So right out the gate, guys, what do you guys think is something that might be kind of interesting about this region as we're about to jump into it?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. We just don't know, right? Obviously, with like Santa Rita, I know last year they played a couple games, and then they had to, discontinue their season. You know what I mean?
I don't even think they played at all.
No, I thought they played a couple
No,
games.
they didn't
No,
play at all.
from the
No,
start.
oh, I thought they played like one or two.
No, that
Okay,
was the
my
year
bad.
before. So I mean, this has been a pattern and a problem for the program to actually
Right.
conclude. And I think actually for the last 3 years,
Hmm.
or actually the 2 years, I would have to say, I don't believe they've had a season. You might even go all the way back to COVID when the COVID season ended. I don't think
Wow,
they've had a season since COVID
that's
that
crazy.
completed. So
That
it's
is wild.
I might be wrong. Don't give me, obviously throw rocks if you feel so. But yeah,
You
but
know what I mean? I mean, we kind of know Tanque Verde is going to be up there. Tombstone. Add in Willcox and things like that. But this is like we just don't know. So I'm kind of excited to talk about these schools and learn about some of these kids. So I mean,
absolutely.
that's my take on it.
And
Definitely
yeah,
a toss-up.
I always think it kind of sheds light into us to kind of
Hmm.
discover new programs. Go ahead.
Right.
Sorry if I interrupted there.
Oh, no, no, no. I just was agreeing with Rodney. Definitely a toss up this year. You're going to see a lot of teams that are going to be trying to revamp their rosters, and
Hmm.
then on top of it, I think when it's all said and done, you might see some different teams actually step up this year and possibly be playoff contenders, and see some teams that might be rebuilding. So it
Yeah.
all depends on how they revamp their rosters.
True.
Absolutely. So let's run through the region. We're going to go ahead and start off, Rodney. Let's jump in with
Perfect.
you. We'll go ahead and start there, Benson.
Absolutely. So we have Benson coming in at 171. Their first game is an away game at Shadow Mountain, who's ranked 165. The next game is a home game against Phoenix Christian at 135. Then they have to travel to Morenci, who's ranked 57. Then they have a cool bye. After their bye, there's a home game, Tombstone, who's ranked 155. Then they're at Bisbee at 156. And then their next 4 games are going to be home games. Palo Verde 201, Santa Rita, who's not ranked, Catalina, who's ranked 208, and then Willcox, who's ranked 142. And then their last regular season game is going to be at Tanque Verde, who's ranked 119. Max Preps has them going 3-7. Personally speaking, me, I have them going 4-6, like with Daniel. And Chris believes in Benson at 6-4.
You know.
So let's start with you, Chris. Like,
yeah, come on, Chris, talk to your boy.
You know, where my wins come from, and like I said, obviously, I've got 6 wins. My 6 wins come from Shadow Mountain, Phoenix Christian, Palo Verde, Santa Rita, Catalina, as well as Tanque Verde. I think when I'm looking at this schedule, the reason why I'm going to go ahead and help them out with the Shadow Mountain and Phoenix Christian, I feel they kind of fell off a little bit. I think right there in the heart of it, Palo Verde, Santa Rita, Catalina, those tend to be give me wins for them. And the Tanque Verde win, even though it may be an upset, I think they've lost a lot. Switching over, obviously they lost Gavin, who was one of their main linebackers / also the key running back for them. So those are where my 6 wins come from. You guys can tell me or tell everybody why you guys feel they don't deserve those other 2.
I could go first on this one. If you look at this roster breakdown, Flint Davis is coming back. 753 yards rushing. They got the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers coming back. That looks good. But for me, they're also bringing in another coach. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. This is their 3rd coach in 3 years, I believe. So it's just something that's always hard to build some chemistry. When you come in a program and you're trying to reestablish yourself, are they learning a new offense? Are they having people catch on to what the coach's vision is? So I think if you look at Benson, they are a team on the rise. Could definitely shock some people with the few players that they have coming back on the offensive end. But it's always going to come down for me, chemistry with the new coach. You kind of got to establish something, and I think that they're going to be right around the 500 mark.
You know what? I'm gonna agree with you too, Daniel. Again, right around that 4-6, 5-5. I mean, again, at Shadow Mountain, again, I believe that's going to be a win. Again, just like what you said, Chris, Palo Verde, Santa Rita, Catalina are going to get wins. I mean, I take Verde again. I know that's going to be the last game. I know, like what you said, Chris, with Gavin, who was at Tanque Verde. Again, I could just see Benson just losing that one. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's pretty much it. 4-6, which is better than what Max Press has them. So maybe that should be a pat on the back for me and Daniel, right? Perfect.
I get you guys. I'll go ahead and
let's
and
go.
They went 4-6 last year, so just
I'll let you be wrong. I'll let you be wrong. It's okay though. All right, coming up next, and we're gonna have Daniel run this one down. This is gonna be Bisbee.
All right, so Bisbee, as we said, is ranked 156. They're a team that's going to start off on a bye, so 10 straight games, gauntlet of a season. They'll start off at Madison Highland, at home the next 2 against Douglas. Oh, sorry, Madison Highlands 175, Douglas 136, at home against Santa Cruz Valley, who's 109. Then on the road at Catalina, who's 208. At home against Benson, who's 171, as well as Willcox, who's 142. At Palo Verde, who's 201. Home against Tanque Verde, who's 119. And then the last 2 are road games at Tombstone, who's 155, and at Santa Rita, who is currently unranked. And Max Preps has them going 5-5. But I think when you look at this team, all 3 of us have them going above that. Chris and Rodney both have them going at 8-2, while I have them going 7-3 this year. I don't know who wants to start off on that one.
I want to start this off real quick. Disrespectful to Max Preps. Okay, 5-5. I don't see it. I gotta call Max Preps up and see what are y'all looking at. Again, I have them going 8-2, just like Chris. With the losses coming from Santa Cruz Valley and Tombstone. But everything goes from Madison Highland all the way down to Santa Rita. I can see them going 8-2. I'll let Chris and Daniel kind of go over like who they have coming back, because they got a lot of kids coming back, like a lot. You know
Well,
what I
I'll
mean?
let Daniel jump in here on just in a second with some of these talent kids coming back.
Hmm.
I'm right there kind of with you as you were mentioning, since we both went 8-2 with them. The difference is here is that I'm going to give them the Tombstone game. The
Hmm.
game that I gave that I said that they're going to have a problem with is probably the oldest rivalry game throughout the country, which is up against Douglas. They just play each other hard, and I can see kind of why Max Preps goes 5-5 because there was a lot of close games last year. But yeah, go ahead, Daniel. Tell them who you got. You know where's the losses there, and also some of the players that you think are going to be relevant.
Yeah, well, across the board, I got Santa Cruz. I agree with you guys on that one. Chris, I'm agreeing with you with the Douglas game. And then I also had the Willcox game as a loss. I think, they're a team when we get into them, defense and running the ball. That's what they execute. I think when you try to control the clock a little bit, you're going to have players like Sebastian Lopez, who not only was their leading passer, threw for over 1,800 yards, but also their leading rusher at 1185. If you can contain him, it's very hard for that offense to be productive. But when you look at this team across the board, the other two running backs are coming back in Bryson Meyer, Emilio Diaz Lopez. Bryson also went for over 1,000 yards. Then you got the number 2 and number 3 receivers, Michael Coronado and Hunter Wright, both coming back. And then on the defensive end, your top 3 tacklers are coming back. Spencer Anthony, Fabian Hernandez, and of course the utility man Sebastian Lopez also plays defense. So a lot of players coming back this year, which is why I have them so high. I just think when you look at Santa Cruz Valley, a Douglas team who have the same amount of players coming back. It's going to be a good one. The only one I would say is they got to beat the champs in order to become the champ. So that's why I'm giving Willcox that third game right there.
Mm.
That's fair.
That's valid. That's valid. Stop the quarterback, y'all win. Boom.
Next one up, we're going to give this over to Roddy. Roddy, go ahead and take us over with the Catalina Trojans.
Catalina, let's go. So we have Catalina coming in at 208. Their first game is an away game at Highland Prep, who's ranked 198. Then their first home game is going to be NFL Yet, who's ranked 210. Then their third game is going to be an away game against ALA Anthem South, who's ranked 214. Then they have a bye week. Then their next game is going to be a home game against Bisbee, who's ranked 156. And then an away game against Tanque Verde, who's ranked 119. And then their next 2 games are going to be home. Santa Rita, who obviously is not ranked, and then Tombstone, who is 155. And then they're at Benson, who's ranked 177. Home game against Palo Verde, 201. And then they'll end their regular season at Willcox, who's ranked 142. Max Preps has them going 3-7. I have them going 3-7. Chris has them going 3-7. But damn, Daniel 2-8. Oh my goodness. You know what, Daniel? Go ahead.
All right. So I got their wins coming against NFL Yet and Santa Rita. I think they beat them. They beat NFL Yet 36-26 last year, and then I believe they picked up another game. They're not on the schedule this year, but San Pasqual down there in California, border of Yuma. But the game that I'm not giving them is the ALA Anthem South game. I think when I saw ALA Anthem South at the 7-on-7 tournament down in Pinal County, I really liked what they did on the offensive end. They have a quarterback who has a deep ball. He could throw the ball a little bit. I'm just hoping that they can, finally put things together, execute things. But that's going to be a toss up. I think I'm going with them just more so being a Pinal County team, that I cover. But the thing that I like about Catalina is even though we don't have any stats for them, only lost 2 players at the wide receiver position. So a lot coming back. They definitely could get those 3 wins. But as the third team in a row, I know we didn't get to mention this with Bisbee, but 3 straight coaching changes here in the 2A San Pedro, and one of them being Catalina. So I'm going to take ALA Anthem South, who is bringing back their coach, and saying, you know what, they can actually knock off Catalina, even though it was only a 30 to 20 game last year. So it's going to be a fun one.
And I think valid to your point. Maybe this does come back and bite me and Rodney with going against you on that ALA game. When you see teams out doing things like 7-on-7s, doing things during the off season, that's crucial because they do get some of that chemistry down. Whereas when they're doing these coaching changes and everything like that, they might be coming in really late trying to figure out who's who. So I can totally see why you made that prediction. I mean, hands down, it makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, just to jump on it. I mean, again, 2-8, 3-7. We got to see just what Catalina is all about, right? Obviously, just like what you said, Daniel. There's no stats on there, so coaches, do us a favor, help us help you, right? Just to showcase these kids in your program. But we'll see. I mean, just like you said, coaches change. Let's see what goes on with Catalina. Let's go.
Next up is going to be Palo Verde. We're going to have Dan. Go ahead, hop in on that one.
All right, so Palo Verde comes in ranked 201. They're another team like Bisbee who's opening up on a bye. So 10 straight games for them. They'll open up at home against Antelope Union, who's 179. They'll be at Rincon University, who's 194, as well as at Coronado, who's 217. Back-to-back home games against Tanque Verde, who's 119, and Santa Rita, who's currently unranked. Then they're on the road at Benson, who's 171. Back at home against Bisbee, who's 156. Two final road games at Willcox, who's 142, and at Catalina, who's 208. Then finish up at home against Tombstone, who is 155, while Max Preps has them going 3-7. And we are all agreeing with that across the board, as well as with their wins and losses. So somebody want to break down who they're going to be defeating this year?
Yeah, I think on this one here, I think we all agree the 3 wins are actually easier probably to say than the 7 losses. When you jump into a Coronado, they've struggled really bad, 217th out of 220 some odd teams in the state. So I mean, obviously, you can kind of sit there and go, all right, maybe this is something for them. We think also another win that could probably come by is obviously that Santa Rita program that struggled to even have a team that we just talked about as well. Or actually we're going to be talking about. And then also Catalina, another program that we've mentioned throughout here as well. I think those are the 3 blemishes, or actually the positives on their season. I think we're all in agreement with that. It's, I mean, it's just one of
the. What? Hey, Chris, I got a question for you, and for you too, Daniel. So what game do you see on here? Because I have one that they could still a win from, right? And the only reason I ask is because I mean they do have some guys coming back. I mean they only lost 2 guys as far as from last year. So at least the camaraderie is there, and things like that. But like, where could they get a 4th win?
If I'm gonna throw a team out there, it's another team that's really struggled. So it kind of depends on how this team comes in. I know Rincon's bringing in a new coach. It's just a tough program that's had a tough time getting things going. So I'd say if Palo Verde can play some of their best football, in week 3, I'm gonna say Rincon. That'd be the team I go with.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think with Rincon, like you're saying, they got one of the coaches that were assisting, like an assistant coach last year is coming into that role. But at the same time, this is also a rivalry game kind of between the 2 programs that goes back for a while. So, yeah, I can kind of I'll agree with you on that.
Okay. Was that your team, Rodney?
True. Yeah. Because I mean, I looked at the game last year. It was like 20-6. So again, close game. Again, I'm just looking at as far as the guys that they have coming back, right? Which is, like they have the quarterback Daniel Ortiz. They have their top 3 running backs. Check that. Sorry, top 3 running backs coming back as well. They have their 2 out of 3 wide receivers: Cameron Pippin, Julian Blackburn. Oh wait, let me give a shout out to those running backs. My bad. Cameron Pippin, Daniel Ortiz, so the quarterback, and then Jason Marino. And then they have their top, or not top, but 2 out of 3 of their tacklers, right? Daniel Ortiz, so he's everywhere, and then Victor Lopez. So, it sounds like, they have a good nucleus. They just got to figure out, I guess, how to win, how to put some wins together. So, Yeah, I can see them going into recon and kind of, maybe.
There could be some shocks
Making
there.
some
Like
noise.
I think
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think another thing that might be one of their goals that they need to focus on right now,
Hmm.
obviously, is building the program. That's maybe one of
Hmm.
the victories they got to focus on is building that foundation, raising the bar and expectations of what they've had in
Hmm.
the past. And yeah, still like bring maybe some of those scores a little closer. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe you don't get those wins, but if you narrow those gaps for the next season or something like that,
Mhm.
I can see that as being a real positive to kind of push them through the
Hmm.
next season and so on, and not falling apart. I mean, let's
Right.
be honest, a lot of these teams think that they have to have wins to build a foundation, to build a program. If you're close and you keep building and you keep building, those losses will become wins. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think you just got to kind of focus on that. Don't worry about anything else, and you'll be fine.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah.
jumping into the next team here, we got Santa Rita. This one's going to be probably real quick for us,
Yeah.
obviously, because there's a lot of things missing, but we're going to have Rodney run down it.
Absolutely. So Santa Rita, obviously, they haven't played in a couple years. So ranked, they don't have one right now. The first game, so the first one is a bye. Then the next game is going to be Globe, who's ranked 196. The next two games is going to be away at San Pascal, which is in California. Shout out to Miguel Rivas, head coach,
Mhm.
at ranked 215. Then they have at ALA Anthem South, who's ranked 214. Then they have a home game against Willcox, who's ranked 142. Then their next four games are going to be on the road, at Palo Verde 201, at Catalina 208, at Benson 171, at Tombstone 155. So listen, you better get your frequent miles ready because y'all going to be on the road a lot. So get that ready. And then their last two games are going to be home games. All right. Tanque Verde 119, Bisbee 156. Max Preps has them going 0-10. We will agree, all three of us, same thing. Just like what you said, Chris, real quick, is it's not about wins, right? It's about building that foundation. And that's really what it is because they haven't had a season in a very long time or finish out even a season.
Yeah.
So I think
Right.
with this is just if they can just come together and just finish out a season,
I
that
mean,
is a win.
I think the expectations for this program is pretty
Mm-hmm.
low. Like we're saying, like honestly, a good season for them is a season.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where they are right now. If they were
Right.
to take anybody and kind of blemish their schedule with a loss, then that's a plus for the program. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I don't think you get too wrapped up in the wins and losses here. I think you got to sit there and go, hey, look, can we get kids to come out? Can we keep our program existing? Because here's another thing with this program is that like unfortunately with the past couple years that they've had, it's actually created kind of a foul stigma amongst the rest of the region because I
Mm-hmm.
mean you're losing senior nights, prom nights, stuff like that originally were maybe scheduled with a Santa Rita program, and so they're kind of bitter. So honestly, the main thing like that they could do for this region right now is just go from game 1 to game 10. So
Yeah.
I mean, that I think is the main value and thing for them,
Mm-hmm.
and be happy with the results and just try to narrow those gaps as best as you can. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys want to add anything more to that.
Oh, no, I think you kinda touched up a lot of it. I think, if I'd add one more thing, depending on how the season plays out, we know the ultimate goal is to finish the season, but say it doesn't, it might be time to think, as Chris, you've said for many years now, to either disband the football program or possibly move down to the 1A, division, because at least you don't need, as many players for
Mhm.
eight-man football. And it can also, you're getting a little bit of competition with really, really small programs that, are just up the way. It's really, I know up the way is not, at least an hour, but you're still playing the Haydens, the Salmon Wells, those
Right.
smaller programs that can probably help develop this team, because I don't think in the future Santa Rita is ever going to be able to gain the players that are leaving to other schools in that neighboring area. So
No,
that's just my
Yeah.
thing.
it'd be a hard struggle for him, and you're absolutely right. Daniel, since you have such strong will and power on something, we're gonna have you jump in here with Tinker Birdie.
All right. So Tanque Verde's coming in at 119 this year. They're going to open up at home against Phoenix Christian, who's 135. Have an early bye the next week. Then back at home against Glendale Prep, who's 173. Two road games at Cortez, who's 162. At Palo Verde, who's 201. Back at home against Catalina, who's 208. And then travel down to Tombstone, who's 155, before playing Willcox at home, who's 142. Then back-to-back road games at Bisbee, who's 156, and Santa Rita, who is unranked. Then finish up at home against Benson, who is 171. And this might come to a surprise. Max Preps has them going 10-0 this year, but we kind of disagree. Rodney has them going 8-2, myself 7-3, and Chris 6-4. So who wants to start things off and see how Tanque Verde will do?
Listen, okay, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do it. Listen, I know Tanque Verde lost some key guys, right? Quarterback Grayson Bradshaw. I know our guy Gavin Gilbert, number one running back. And again, the quarterback was their second leading running back. But they do bring their third running back, okay, who again is Sebastian Blankman. But the good news that they do bring in their top three wide receivers, but then they do lose all their tacklers. So Dylan Lewis, Deion Harrison, Kason White, wide receivers. I hope y'all out there working and getting better because we're going to need to depend on y'all, all right? Sebastian, too. At the end of the day, I have them, again, going 8-2 with their losses going from Willcox and Bisbee. I think everything else, let's be honest, I think Tanque Verde is going to be a running team just like last year, right? So with that being said, just control the ball like what Daniel always says, 8-2. I don't see where 10-0 comes from, but 8-2 is still a good season,
Go ahead, Danny. You're next.
All right. And so, Rodney, I'd agree with you with the two losses to Willcox and to Bisbee. But there's a team out there that, even though they Tanque Verde beat them 31-0 last year, I think this team has some pretty good players coming back, especially on the offensive end. So, Chris, I'm going to take one out of your book. I'm going to go with a home team here, always riding with the home teams. And I'm going to take Tombstone to knock off Tanque Verde possibly as well. Like Rodney, their offense is pretty much going to be brand new. Got the the third stringers coming back in the running back position. I think Tombstone has a little bit more coming back, and it's going to make for a better game than it did last year for sure.
Absolutely.
I agree with you too. I mean, once again, my 4 losses coming to Tanque Verde this season will be Tombstone, Willcox, Bisbee, just like pretty much the ones you guys agree with. I'm going to throw Benson in that mix as well. I just think that the lower bottom half of this region with your Santa Ritas, Palo Verdes, and Catalinas, they kind of run kind of at that bottom. It's like, okay, cool, we got those are there. But the top part of this, the Tombstone, the Willcox, also, the Tanque Verde and Bisbee actually. Benson's in there too. I just think, it's like it's a different kind of battle. Those are your good games. We all know it. Those are the good games. So I don't think like 10-0 by all means. I think 6-4, and honestly, some of those 6-4s we could. I think those 4 games, those losses, we could all be kind of, tricked because the top tier of this, or the top half of this region, is actually pretty solid across the board. So that's where I'm going. We'll see what Coach Bull now has, and what some of these kids are gonna like. What they're going to do. Are they going to buy in? I know it's building a better culture over at Tanque Verde. So, hey, look, another thing that we haven't even touched on, right, is linemen. Like, I think especially down here when you have such a fragile kind of like program, like 3 kids could leave and it could be devastated. You know what I mean? So a lot of it comes down the line. Where's the strength in these teams? And that's where some of these losses and wins could come from as well.
Absolutely.
I definitely agree with that.
Right. So, who was that? That was Rodney, right? No, that was you, Daniel, right?
No, I got Tombstone.
Rodney,
oh man, listen, Tombstone Yellow Jackets. Early bye week, right? Next is going to be there we go, a home game an away game at Heritage Academy on Thursday, who's ranked 151. Their next two games are going to be home games but against San Carlos, who's ranked 216, and against Globe, who's ranked 196. Then their next following two games are going to be away at Benson, who's ranked 171, at Willcox, who's ranked 142, and then they have a home game against Tanque Verde, who's ranked 119. Next game is going to be away at Catalina, who's ranked 208. The next two games are going to be against Santa Rita, and then Bisbee, who's ranked 156. And then they'll wrap up their regular season at Palo Verde, who is ranked 201. So listen, Max Prep's got them going 6-4. Chris and Daniel got them going 8-2. I have them going 9-1. So we're thinking Max Preps, you're crazy again. Either y'all want to start off and talk about, this high record that we have, this prediction for Tombstone.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right. I think me and Dan will jump in here pretty much to make it easier rather than say the wins. The losses we both agree here on Willcox and Bisbee. Those are the two programs that we feel are just coming back a little bit dominant more, a little bit stronger possibly. But I'll say this. Don't count out Coach Bonilla when it comes down to his Tombstone and his Yellow Jackets. They're solid. If you sleep on them, they move the ball pretty well. I think Malachi Kelly, I believe his name was. Keller. I apologize. I knew it was Kelly Keller. He was a strong wide receiver, a huge chunk of their air raid game last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they replace him. Their quarterback, obviously, he was a hell of a passer, as well as a running back for them as well. Got a lot of the rushing and passing yards, obviously, for them. So really interested to see how that fits. But that's where I'm at with them.
And I'd have to definitely agree with you. I think it was a surprise to see their quarterback, throw for over 1,500 yards in DJ Elias, Sebastian Jones, as well as Jemiah Wallace. All three, are the two core running backs plus your quarterback. You have plenty to do on that offensive side of the ball, and why they're going to be so tough. If you look at that game against Bisbee, it could possibly go in their favor again, like it did last year, won 36-20. And then if I take a look at that Willcox game, it was only a 3-point game where they lost 23-20. So just shows how good Tombstone is, not losing too much on both sides of the ball. But as we always say, you got to still play the game. And I think right now, man, they're the ones where they could possibly take this thing. They could possibly steal it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Listen, I'm gonna agree with y'all. I'm gonna be real quick. I agree with you guys. With Coach Benias over there. Again, I can see 9-1, 8-2. Again, they have a great team coming back. That Bisbee game is going to be a good game, I believe, just with how much is coming back from Bisbee, how much is coming back from, again, Tombstone. It's going to be a good game. So I don't know what Max Preps is thinking. They must be sleeping, on them. But I got them going 9-1. You guys got them going 8-2. So, we're kind of in the same boat.
And only loss for you was actually Tanque Verde.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? I don't want to be the same. Like I can't team up with you guys all the time. So I gotta kind of throw like a little curveball in there. Like, let me throw one. Wait, hold on.
No, I think outside of that one, it was surprising to see you pick them over Willcox as well. So
listen. When it happens, right? I know a couple coaches over there at Willcox. They're gonna be mad at me. It's all good, okay? Which let's go straight to Willcox. Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, yeah, let's dive into them. Willcox currently will come in at 142. They'll open up on the road at Arizona Lutheran, who's 82. Back-to-back home games against Tonopah Valley, who's 120, and Sholo, who's 125. Then following their bye week, they're at Santa Rita, who's unranked, home against Tombstone, who's 155. 2 road games at Bisbee, who's 156, and at Tanque Verde, who's 119. Then home against Palo Verde, who's 201. Final road game will be at Benson, who's 171. And then they'll wrap up things at home against Catalina, who's 208. where Max Preps, another surprise here, has them going 6-4. Rodney, you got them going 5-5. Chris, you got them going 6-4, and then myself has them going 7-3. So, which one of you guys want to start off on that one?
Let me just start this off, right? So we all agree on those first 3 games, right? AZ Lutheran, Tonopah Valley, Sholo losses. We have them winning, obviously, Santa Rita. I have the other 2 losses coming in from Tombstone, who's, again, a pretty damn good team, and then Bisbee. Again, not giving anything away to Willcox. I could just see a 5-5. Obviously, they have their quarterback is gone, Cash. They do have their top 3 running backs coming back with Ishmael, Remington, and then Landon Ward, who also plays special teams, quick little running back there. And then their wide receivers, obviously 2 out of 3 with Landon Ward and Remington Todd. So they stay busy, right? And then there are 1 out of their 3 tacklers are coming back in Ishmael. I know last year, what did they go? 10-3, I believe.
Last year they went 6-4, and then they lost in the first round of the playoffs to Scottsdale Christian.
What am I looking at? Really? Okay.
Looking at.
Hey, my match prep's got this all wrong then. Oh my God.
You skipped a year, man. You going?
I'm gonna shout out.
What? I did skip a year. Listen. I was like, wait. So yeah, they did go 6-5. Sorry about that. Yes. Again, 6-5, 5-5. I guess that's a win, ish. But that's how I see it.
All right. What about you, Chris?
I think my ones here, obviously, like we're all agreeing. And the one thing I kind of see, which is sad, it actually affects the region as a whole, is when you guys can't get these non-conference or non-region games. We got to win the non-region games, especially when you're going to have certain weights inside your region, such as Santa Rita, Palo Verde, Catalina, traditionally. So it's crucial to come up with some of these wins, but unfortunately, all 3 of us got the win. The losses coming to them from those non-region games. It's not until they get into their region, and let's be honest, even there, it's like, okay, so where's the loss for me? My loss for them inside the region is Bisbee. I actually got Bisbee pretty much being the one to beat in the region, which we'll go over here shortly. But we can't, and we'll talk about this maybe later in the wrap-ups, is it time for certain teams to leave this division and move up to maybe a 3A? There's you almost have to get away from certain programs to do better, and I hate to sound like that, but that's my 3 cents.
All right, and for me, I have them going 7-3. The 3 losses coming in the first 3 weeks to Arizona Lutheran, Tonopah Valley, and Sholo. But I'm gonna leave the window open. I know Bisbee beat them last year, I believe 30-28, which was good one. But I can also possibly see Willcox, if they go down to the way I've been saying it, running the ball, controlling the clock, and utilizing their defense, maybe knocking off a team like a Tonopah Valley, who they only lost to 45-42, or maybe even Sholo. We talked about it in the 3A Central. Sholo will be having a new coach this year with Carlo Hernandez going down to Coolidge. So it leaves the window open for a team like Willcox to improve. But I think if I'm going to give them the 3 losses, it'll be in those first 3 weeks, and then they control things the rest of the way.
I like it.
So just to kind of touch base and let everybody see how we got it going on the picks here. Yeah, here. And then the other thing that we always do around this time is we always discuss pretty much how our region standings, what we feel is going to be our region standings at the end of the year. So, with 8 teams in this region, it's definitely an interesting thing. Rodney, do you want to go over your picks for your region leaders first?
Yeah, so I have Bisbee and Tombstone going 6-1. I have Tanque Verde and Willcox going 5-2. I have Benson going 3-4. Palo Verde going 2-5. Catalina going 1-6. and then Santa Rita, unfortunately, going 0-7.
And Daniel?
I got Willcox going 7-0, Bisbee going 6-1, Tombstone going 5-2, Tanque Verde going 4-3, Benson going 3-4, and then I have Palo Verde going 2-5, Catalina 1-6, and Santa Rita 0-7.
Mm.
And my number one team for the region is going to be Bisbee. My number two is going to be Willcox. My number three team will be Tombstone, which I actually feel those can actually interchange. I wouldn't be shocked on those three at all. My number four team is going to be Tanque Verde. My number five team is going to be Palo Verde. My number six will be Catalina. And the seven team, which I've got to have missed somebody. I missed Benson. My bad. Benson's actually going to be my number, what is that now? My number three team. Four team will be, well, is that right? So Bisbee 1, Willcox 2, Tombstone 3, Benson 4, Tanque Verde 5, Palo Verde 6, 7 is going to be Catalina, 8 is going to be Santa Rita. That's where I'm at. Sorry about that, guys. Just like I'm all like sitting here, like, man, I'm losing count.
Right, with all these teams, my goodness. Yeah.
So definitely interesting. Another exciting region. Let's be honest. There's going to be some great games in there, as we discussed. I really think they're going to have to impact the non-region games, like I was just discussing as well. Let me ask you guys this: is it time for maybe some of these teams to sit there and go, look, you know what? Maybe we're not going to win the 2A conferences, or maybe we do. You know, I mean, let's be honest. We've had a lot of teams from this region go pretty strong in some of these playoffs. But do you sit there and go, you know what? Let's move up to 3A. Yes, we will join like Safford, Morenci, who was just in this region. Benson was up there just a moment ago, moved down, and still made the playoffs in 3A. So do you move up there? Now, granted, you're going to have the Thatchers and stuff like that, but your commute drops tremendously. Like these teams are driving all over the place on non-region games. I mean, so do you sit there and go, okay, let's do that, and then become stronger by playing better programs? Or do you wait and kind of, you know, could we have a Santa Rita that doesn't even fulfill a program, or a program? Catalina's been at times where maybe they wouldn't fulfill a program. So there's been certain things like that. Do you talk about maybe leaving?
No.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
No.
Go ahead. Tell us why.
So this is the part, at least the top teams, let's say like the Tombstones, the Bisbee, no. And this is the reason why, right? What's the purpose? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like I would rather just stay in the 2A. I get what you're saying as far as like the whole travel against the non-region games. But I got a question. Could they pick other games that are closer by that are non-region?
Well, so for example, right?
Talk to me.
In their situation right now at a 2A, right? What's going to happen is they're probably going to mix up things where you see them playing the Salt. I forget what the other one is. That if it's the East, I don't know what the regions are called off the top of my head. But you typically what happens too is that you have, like, for instance, a Pima, right, which is a 2A team. You know, you might get somebody to play them. But if you look at, like, for instance, the Safford area, you got Tombstone. I'm not Safford, Tombstone. You have Safford. You have Thatcher. You have Pima. You have Morenci. You have all these things right there. And then if you take a short trip down, you're in Willcox. You're already there. You're there at Benson. So I mean, there's certain things like those games when they used to all be in a region back in the day before this all separated thing kind of happened. They used to play each other and they would have those kind of rivalries.
But could they compete? That's one thing. I don't think Tombstone can compete against a Thatcher.
No, and you're probably right on that.
You know what I mean? So, go ahead.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at as far as like, okay, do we go up, but we might lose people because we don't get our ass whooped, right? Or do we just stay where we are and enjoy, you know what I mean, like having camaraderie and things? I mean, I don't know. I don't know that area too well. Again, I'm just looking at when you say 3A, I'm like, ooh, Safford, Thatcher, you know, yeah, I don't know.
And so for me, I think if you look at everybody in this region right here, I'd say no. If I was going to give you one team, I would say probably Willcox has the
Hmm.
foundation to compete with those type of teams like Safford, Thatcher, and that's just because they all play similar style of
Hmm.
football.
Hmm.
But when I look at like maybe a team like Pima, who is running through not only their region but throughout the playoffs, they're returning every year to the state championships. And so I would say a team like Pima, who's already uh
I think they're
dominated at the 2A level, yes, a team like them
Hmm.
probably would be wise to move up. But when I look back, as Chris, you were saying, Benson being in the playoffs a couple years ago in 3A,
Hmm.
is it because they were good, or was it because they were in a strong region like we saw in the 3A South last year?
I think what happens often with programs like Benson, like under Chris Detterman, you go back a couple years when they were doing the pretty much like a double wing kind of program or something like
Hmm.
that, which didn't have a lot of flair. I get it, and I think maybe some of the administration or whatnot they wanted to have like a different kind of concept, maybe a pass or whatever the case might
Hmm.
be. Is I think when you go to these small towns, you kind of got to play what you have.
Hmm.
It's not like, hey, look, this is what it is. This is the deck of cards we have. We either bluff and we play strong, or we just got to figure out how to do it.
Hmm.
Um, so the thing I think with these programs is that it just takes a couple kids to wipe everything out. Like
Hmm.
Mhm,
you could have a batch of kids, for example, like Benson did. There was a solid program. I think it was the 2020 one class and the 2022 class where they did
Hmm.
really well under Detterman. And what happened is that whole group graduated, leaving it kind of a little barren spot there. Not that they were horrible. That was not the case. It's just a rebuild kind of thing because it's that group of kids in that small community that literally makes that program dominant. Like when
Right.
we sit there, for example, and we're talking about Bisbee right now, they have a solid group. I mean, I actually thought Sebastian Lopez was a senior last year. To see
mhm,
that he's coming back, to see that like they only lost like I think it was one kid, right?
Hmm.
That's huge for a program in this size or this division. You have a two-way program where a lot of your kids were relevant, like a lower class men that were relevant, and they're moving up into the next season. That could mean everything for a program. So I think that's kind of what affects maybe the two-way more than like anything else.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, if you look back at it with this new 2 block system, 2-year system where they're, everything's staying locked in for 2 years, it's also hurting, programs like a Bisbee, who we don't know what they'll be next year. We
Hmm.
don't know what they're gonna return, how many players, and so if they were to move up next year and, have a successful season this year, and then they're stuck in the 3A for 2 years, it doesn't help a program,
Right.
because if you look at outside of Tanque Verde last year, who played Parker, they won 24-0 and then got knocked out in overtime against Arizona Lutheran. But if you look at Willcox and Tombstone, they played Scottsdale Christian, lost, or Willcox played Scottsdale Christian, lost 49-7. The Tombstone played Santa Cruz Valley, lost 49-14. Those are pretty much your top teams, outside of the Pimas, who are going to be right there in the mix of things again. If you cannot compete with those teams with scores like that, how are you going to compete at a 3A level and get put into a region like Thatcher, Sabino, Safford, all those guys? So I think that's why we got to kind of keep them there until they're in the semifinal state championships
Right.
year after year.
Well, and I also see something with these lower regions too or divisions is that like if you look at like a Thatcher or Safford, like we've been kind of talking about, or even like a Wilcox for that matter, you're in small rural areas that like don't tend to get like a flux of kids like I was talking about. Yet you have programs, for example, like the charter schools, the religious schools that or whatnot, the private schools. I'm sorry, and then you have also schools and programs such as, like, I hate to sound like this, it shouldn't and wouldn't take much for Palo Verde to become a powerhouse if they could just get kids to go. They're a higher enrolled program. If they could get the kids to turn out and do something and just buy in, night and day, boom. Like all of a sudden, Palo Verde could win a state championship. It wouldn't take much because they're in a market that actually a lot of kids could transfer into that school, say, hey, look, let's just go chase a state championship at 2A. Okay, cool. We'll all go to Palo Verde, and all of a sudden it's like, wham, you could wipe out that whole region, if not the whole conference, like in just like that, because you're in a situation or a district that has thousands of kids, so all it takes is like, hey, you know what, guys, let's just go screw this whole thing up, go to Catalina.
That'd be a good episode talking point there, kind of talk about that, dive into it.
Yeah, and it's just on certain notes, like if, for instance, if all the kids that were like in the whole Sabino / area that's right over there by Tanque Verde, all of a sudden said like, you know what, we're not playing with Sabino. Well, let's go over to Tanque Verde, dude. You enjoy your ring. It's not gonna like, it's not like I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing. Like as you go, for instance, like into a Sabino region or like the Division threes, it's like, oh, let's all go to Push Ridge, And like could you imagine if like all of a sudden everybody was like, you know what?
Chris is gonna be starting stuff. Look at
yeah. Oh, wait, hold on.
But push the record. I don't care. But like, I mean, if everybody was to just sit there and go, you know what, man, this kid's over here. I really want to be with him. I want to play with them. Let's go as a group. You can see like just splatter them. I mean, let's be true. That's what Yuma Catholic does. Yuma Catholic's doing that. All they are is a South Point sitting in Yuma. That's all it is.
Listen, you don't know what they're doing. Stop it. Don't bring accusations.
I'm telling you this. Yuma Catholic, tell me if I'm wrong. Everybody in Yuma sits there and goes, hey, look, if you want to be on a winning program, you go to Yuma Catholic. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, but let's be honest. Who else is there that they would go to?
Well, there's like 7 or 8 schools in that area.
But let's be honest. I want to go to the winning school.
I agree with you. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is that like, hey, look, we all go in, we buy here, we become a dominant program that gets respect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, hey, look, that's what these people are able to do. Like you're in a small market, you're playing. In their case,
unfortunately, I think the difference is that they are a private school,
right?
And you don't get that a lot. You don't see a lot of these public schools that are trying to get kids to go to their programs to sit there and be like, oh, well, we got this over here at the public school, when these private schools are able to recruit. They're able to upgrade their facilities on a regular basis. So when something looks brand new and shiny, you got something, a little bit older and busted over here, you're going to go for something shiny. So I think that's unfortunately what we're seeing. And, I see it a lot in basketball. In high school, is that everything you see as far as playoffs come from, it's private schools, it's charter schools, and then it's everybody else.
It's a group of kids that typically play club that go off into one school, and then they're dominant. They play year round together, and it's understandable. Once again, you're not going to get me sitting here saying it's not necessarily wrong on certain hands, just like if everybody were like I was to say, go over to Palo Verde, let's just do it. Okay, cool. Like I'm just saying, like it's little things that could happen. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's easier to do in these bigger markets. Whereas if you go into like a Benson's not going to sit there and go, hey, everybody, travel 2 hours to come to our school. Like it's just not gonna. It's not the same. And now with even in that area of Benson, Tombstone, stuff like that, you have that new school, the ALA Sierra Vista. They're going to be going in there soon, which is going to take kids from those programs. So we just sit back and watch what happens.
Well, I'm ready for it. So. Yeah, it would definitely be for a good talking point. For sure.
You never know. That show might be coming up. Y'all be paying attention to it. Other than that, anything else we guys want to drop? This has been a fun show, guys. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah. No,
biggest region we got.
I was gonna say, give me one team that can stir the pot here this year.
Ooh.
to make things not go as planned as we see.
Okay.
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
for me, I think the top four are the top four, and I think the only one that could maybe stir some stuff up in that might be my number 5, which I think was Benson. I think Benson could turn in some things and maybe flip some wins or stuff like that. But honestly, I think there's a tennis match going on at all top 3, 4 of them. I mean, it could be interesting regardless.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Okay, you know what? I'm gonna throw a curveball.
Go ahead, throw it.
I'm gonna say that Santa Rita wins 2 games.
Ooh.
I was gonna say 1, but I kind of 1 is too easy.
I'll be happy if Santa Rita finishes 2 games.
You know what? No,
Hey.
no. Listen, let's go Santa
Like,
Rita.
I don't mean that to be ugly, guys. I really
No, you don't. Santa Rita, let's go 1 game. No, you know what? Let's go 1 game. Santa Rita wins 1 game.
You better
Okay.
idle in
It's
on
gonna mess up
Catalina.
everything. Let's go.
And my team's gonna be. I know Chris, you already had him winning, but I'm gonna go with Bisbee. I think if things go the way you said they're gonna go, they're gonna be my team to kind of stir the pot a little bit, shock some people.
You know what? No, forget y'all. Santa Rita, we're going back to y'all. Santa Rita is going to upset Palo Verde and Catalina back-to-back weeks.
Ooh, well, you know what? That's what Catalina came with last year. You know, I think Chris and I had him going 0-10, came out with 3 wins last year, so it can be
Let's go.
When wins those games? What week?
Let's see. One, two, three. Wait, September 27th and October 4th.
Yep.
My goal is look. I'll
Both
be happy
on the road.
I'll be happy if
Listen.
they make it there. Like
Come on,
honestly,
bro. Let's go.
call me a hater. Call me a Santa Rita. I'm not trying. Once again, not hating Santa Rita. I just think like there's some things you either put it into pasture or you go drop down to 8-man football. Like I'm sorry. Like if you haven't been able to finish 2 seasons, you haven't done it.
Okay.
You know, and punishing kids for wanting to transfer. Like I'm sorry. Don't even get me started on this.
Whoa.
So,
We'll end it right there, Chris.
End it. Boom.
We'll end it right
Period.
there.
period. So,
Period.
hey, watch out for Tombstone. Watch out for Bisbee. Watch out for Willcox.
Santa Rita.
You know, I mean, Tanque Verde could be even thrown into that too. I mean,
Can't keep them out.
yeah, they're definitely going to be a fun region to watch. I'll say that much. But other than that, we have obviously Daniel from Varsity Breakdown. Make sure you go check them out. Also, my mind in the middle, the recruiting man, Mr. Game Time, Rodney Cox, and me here. Make sure you guys are like, follow, and subscribe to the page. Share this, get it out there. Let's stir up some conversation about what's going on in football in Southern Arizona. I do appreciate all those people who have been chiming into some of this. What is it? We're already over 2,200 views for and we just hit the halfway mark. We're just on the other side of it. So definitely cool. We appreciate it. It's hard to get views on YouTube in the first place. So props. Appreciate y'll.
Yeah.
Y'all
Salt coming next.
All right. 2A salt next. Absolutely. All right, guys. Y'all be good.
Salt.